Hey y'all, it's Care. October is here. I'm so excited. That means Halloween is just around the corner. So of course I want to give you some book recommendations for this season, not fall, but just for Halloween. These are going to be a lot of horror books. There are a few cozy books like kind of spread throughout the mix. I've got a few different categories to break the recommendations into, but you read the title. These are going to be Halloween-ish book recommendations. So I'm breaking the books up into 3 different categories. The first one is going to be short and spooky reads. So these are kind of spooky books or scary books. A lot of them actually are horror novellas, but anyway, you get what I'm saying. They're like 250 pages or less, I think. They're short books. And then the second one, it's just called Halloween vibes. So either the book is taking place around Halloween or it just gives you that really strong atmospheric spooky feeling when you're reading. And then the third category, we're just gonna call it Just Trust Me. Okay, I can't really put my finger on what makes it a Halloween recommendation, but I think once I get to that part of the video, you'll say, oh, okay, I see what she's saying. I don't know, maybe not. I'll let you be the judge. So let's go ahead and jump into short and spooky reads. Actually, I think I have the most recommendations for this category because I love a short book. The first recommendation that I have is called 12 Nights at Rotter House. It is so good. I'm already getting so excited about these. Okay, this book starts with a man entering a house and there's no electricity in this house. No one lives there. It's actually like very haunted supposedly. And we find out that he's a travel writer, kind of like a horror travel writer, and he's really interested to go stay at this house called Rotterdam Mansion, I think. And he wants to stay there for 13 nights. But as the title suggests, 12 Nights at Rotter House. Is something gonna go wrong? Yeah. This book really is so good. Like, this is maybe my #1 recommendation for all of this video. That's why I put it right up front, because I feel like I don't talk about it enough. And even when I finished reading it, I think I gave it like 3.5 stars, but I think about this book all the time, especially the ending. There is just like a huge twist that I absolutely did not see coming, and I ate it right up, and I really do think about it all the time. The next recommendation is The Patient by Jasper DeWitt, and this one gets really dark really fast. This is a pretty disturbing book, and it's more of a psychological thriller, but there definitely are some gory, descriptive horror moments too. So I just think that it was exactly what I was looking for, and it was wrapped up in a nice short little package. The book starts out like it's being told on an online forum from the perspective of a doctor who used to work at a psychiatric ward, and he is recounting the story of how he used to work with the most dangerous patient at the psychiatric hospital where he worked. So just right up front, the story already feels like it has these layers to it because we're hearing the story from this man, but you know, we know he's gonna make it, right? He's telling his own story, and I just love how that like gets in my mind and just gets those wheels turning of, this is such a cool way to tell the story, you know? Basically, he gets in there, he's all cocky. He's like, I know that no one has ever been able to cure this patient, but I'm different and I'm here now to save the day. And once he gets in there, he starts working with this patient. He's like, yeah, this guy is completely normal. Okay. And things just like go off the rails, like steering off the mountain. I don't know. That's what that was. It's, you know. If you like psychological horror with that hospital setting, then you gotta pick this one up. The next short book recommendation is My Sister the Serial Killer by Owen Khan Brathwaite. And this book has like 220 pages, but the chapters are so incredibly short, and also the words are super big on the page. Love this book. I read this a few years ago and actually featured it in my very first YouTube video ever, which was called Short and Spooky Reads, something like that, and I did it like right at Halloween time. Just good memories, just reminiscing for a minute. This one isn't really horror or thriller, it's more family dynamic, but we have that undercurrent of just uneasiness that runs throughout the entire book, and that's what I think makes this very special. We're following the dynamic between these two sisters, Ayula and Korede, and the book is really about Korede and her life. She's a really hard worker and a really good person, and she just always seems to fall in her sister's shadow, but they're super close. Like, it's not really a competitive thing going on, but her sister Ayula keeps getting these dead boyfriends, you know what I mean? She's dating people and then they end up dying mysteriously, and then Korede's like, is is Ayula like murdering these men? I don't know. I'm not gonna ask any questions. I'm just gonna mind my business and help my sister. It's just a really good combination of being a light and interesting read, but also having some impactful and meaningful conversations. And it's super short, super easy to get through. The next recommendation I have, I actually just read last month, and it's called Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. And this all takes place pretty much, it's told through like instant messages, and it's about these two young women who meet online on this almost like a Craigslist ad or forum type thing, where one of them is trying to sell a peeler and the other one wants to buy it, and then from there they kind of start this back and forth, and then things go crazy. Things go in. This is an insane book. Not only does it not have a lot of pages, but because a lot of it is told through the back and forth IMs, it goes by super fast because it's like reading text. This is definitely horror. There's a lot of violence in this book, and there's a lot of really descriptive, gross things that happen. So I can't say that enough. That's really probably the case with most of these recommendations, but a lot of the imagery just vividly stands out in my mind after finishing, and I finished it like a month ago and I still have been thinking about it. It's gross, but I loved it. Next, of course, we've got The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. I don't know if this is necessarily spooky, but again, going back to the My Sister the Serial Killer vibe, it's very, like, it makes you uncomfortable. Like from page 1, you get the hairs on the back of your neck to stand up because something just feels off, something feels wrong. And it's about this man who's taking the British citizenship test because he wants his family to have citizenship in Great Britain, obviously. But once he gets in there, the test is not what it seems. And I can't tell you anything else other than that because the book is so short and there are a lot of twists really early on. This one is a little bit more, I want to say kind of, maybe not sci-fi, like really not science fiction, but it's not horror and it's not really a thriller. It's just an interesting little book and it's super short. Give it a chance. Next, I have your super basic recommendation. I know everyone is telling everyone to read this book, but I really mean it. Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. So short, so interesting, so just quirky. Actually, the publisher's quirk. So this is the most creative, what do you call it, packaging, marketing, whatever, for a book ever, like besides House of Leaves. Okay, this book is about a woman who works at a store that is very similar to IKEA, and it's called Orsk. It's fun to say. So she works there, she gets there one day, and upper management is coming soon, and people have been vandalizing the store overnight. So her boss is like, yo, we've all gotta stay here overnight and catch these vandals because our bosses are coming tomorrow, and if the store is a wreck when we come in tomorrow, we're all gonna be in trouble. Makes perfect sense. Let's all spend the night in the Orsk. You know, suspend your disbelief for this one because a lot of things that happen obviously aren't believable, but it is so much fun if you can just let go, especially in October. It's kind of scary actually. There's a lot of body horror going on in this book. I was really into it though. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, of course, once they begin the overnight stay, it turns into that, is somebody breaking in or is this place haunted? Okay, now that I've told you about it, let me show you a little bit. So this entire book, this is actually like in the shape of a square, and it looks like a little nice coffee table read, but when you open it up, it looks like an IKEA manual, and it's like, welcome to Orsk. Yeah. Okay, also, like, all of the words are blue. That was kind of weird for me at first, but I got used to it. But the beginning of each new chapter, like, is explaining a piece of furniture, and it, like, somehow usually comes up in the chapter, or sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. It's been a while since I've read this book, but, like, it's just so unique. It's so weird. I don't know. Grady is always doing the most with whatever he is doing. I know everyone's already told you to read this, but if you haven't read it yet and you're slightly interested, just give it a shot. It's not perfect, but it is so unique. The next recommendation I have is a little bit different. It's Sour Candy by Keelan Patrick Burke. I always switch his name up. So sorry, I really can't tell you that much about it because of how short it is, but I can tell you we have a man in the story and we have a creepy kid in the story, and it's like a odd, almost father-child type relationship. They're not actually father and child, but it's like, I don't know, if you like stuff with creepy kids in it or like evil kids, Sour Candy is really cool. And a lot of these books, almost everyone that I've not held up physically, I read the ebook on Scribd. If you're interested, I've got like a link in my description box where you can sign up and get a certain amount of time for free. I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure, but most of these are on Scribd. I read this one on Scribd. It's one of those where I could like sit on my lunch break in my car or something and like read an entire short story on my phone. The last recommendation I have for short and spooky reads is The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. Same author as Gone Girl, Sharp Objects, Dark Places, You Know Her, You Love Her. But have you read The Grown Up? Because a lot of people say that it might be their favorite thing from her. I'm not the one saying that, but I do really like The Grown Up. This is another one that has like a really weird adult/child relationship, and I'm not gonna tell you literally anything about this one, but I just want to put it on your radar in case you didn't know. Gillian Flynn has written a super short book that is creepy, and it'd be perfect to read around Halloween. All right, moving into the second category, we've got Halloween vibes. The one I want to start with here is called No One Gets Out Alive, and this isn't really like taking place around Halloween or anything like that, but I did just finish it. It's about a haunted house, and I want to call it probably the scariest book I've ever read. So it would really be good to read this book around Halloween if you want a really good haunted house story. This book is about a young woman who is really down on her luck. She's recently broken up with her boyfriend. She is like in between living situations. She's been in between jobs, but she's found a new job that she's hoping is going to work out. She hasn't really started it yet. And then on top of that, she doesn't have great relationships with her family, and she just has her back up against a wall. She needs a place to live, but she really doesn't have any money. So she goes and she lives in this sketchy, I was calling it an apartment building in my last video, and I still am not sure. It sounds like it's just like a big old house, but I think it might be more apartment styles in a haunted, I don't know, I really don't know, but there are like units in this place. I'm just gonna keep calling it an apartment building. Do you care? I don't care. And just right off the bat, the landlord or the tenant or like whoever's running this place, super weird. Just got like a horrible gut feeling about him immediately. And there's just a lot of really graphic, horrible things that happen in this book that are not paranormal. So we have very realistic horror going on. We have some paranormal horror going on. I'm smiling talking about it, even though it's like, it actually is horrific, but it's one of the first books I've ever read that really got me like consistently throughout with the visceral reactions. Like a lot of time when I'm reading horror, something might be building to a moment where I'm like, ugh, that was gross. But this book like did it to me the entire time I was reading. Or I did listen to the audiobook for this one, and I think the audiobook was actually so good. I really liked the narrator. I definitely loved the first half better than the second half, but overall I just really recommend reading it this time of year. I'm so embarrassed to even bring up this next one because I won't shut up about it, and I haven't shut up about it for a year because I read this, I want to say last October. Perfect, almost a perfect book. It's called The Stranger Diaries by Ellie Griffiths. You may have heard of it. I don't know what it is about this book that makes me love it so much, because it's not particularly like creepy, or I don't know, it's more of a traditional whodunit, what's going on here mystery. It's not even really a thriller. It's kind of like a detective mystery book. Oh, it's so good. And it actually starts out right at Halloween. You know what I just realized? I talk about it so much, I don't think I've even talked about what it actually is about in a while. So let me just go through it really quickly. So this book is about an English professor, and you know, she teaches this like gothic college, and it sounds so cool. Perfect for October, okay? So at the beginning of the book, one of her friends and colleagues is murdered or is found dead, and something is left at the scene that is kind of like a bookish clue that the teacher catches onto, but she doesn't know if like making it known that she thinks she might know what the clue is. She doesn't know if that would be weird or like suspicious, or like, you know, and actually like, does she have something to do with it? I love it so much. And it starts out with her like teaching this story, and the story is all about Halloween, and actually that story is also being told in alternating chapters throughout the book. So we're getting like a book within a book almost, or like, maybe not a book within a book, but it's like two different books in one book. You know I love that. I can't help myself. But like I said, this is a detective book, so we've got Harbinder Kaur come in. She's a really witty detective, really strong woman, and I really like her as a character. And she comes in and is like, we're gonna solve this. We're gonna get to the bottom of this mystery. And it's pretty straightforward. And I think the reason I liked it so much is because, one, it really did feel like the perfect Halloween read if you're looking for something like kind of spooky but not horror, nothing like incredibly graphic. I mean, there are deaths, and like the deaths are described, but it's not super intense. I don't know, maybe don't, if you're sensitive to stuff, maybe don't take any recommendation I give ever, because it's hard for me to remember. But I'm not calling this a textbook cozy mystery, because I know that's an entire genre, but it is a cozy mystery book that's really fun to read to try to figure out who's been killing these people. Next, Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. I know I talk about it in literally every video, but it takes place on Halloween, or a large chunk of the book takes place on Halloween. It's about these 4 horror authors who all get together to go stay overnight in a haunted house, and they're going to actually film the entire experience, and I think they're actually gonna live stream it maybe. It's supposed to be like a big media thing to get people talking about their books again, but once they get to the house, things are actually haunted, okay? I'm just gonna tell you, it's a haunted house. That's not, literally not spoiling anything. You know that going in. Like if you read the inside cover, it says the entity they have awakened will follow them, torment them, threatening to make them a part of the bloody legacy of Kill Creek. One thing I just really like about this book is that it does not end after that night they all spend together at the house is over. The book continues, and actually that's really where the story gets going. It's so creative. I love Scott Thomas. He is such a gem. While we're talking about books that focus in on horror authors, I need to mention The Retreat. This is another book that I recently read that would be perfect for October, or really winter time in general probably. And when I say winter, of course I mean fall. So this book is about a writer's retreat and the woman who runs it. She had a daughter, she had a husband, but both of them supposedly died a few years ago. They drowned in a river that's back behind the house, or a creek, or some type of body of water. They are no longer in her life. So she runs this writer's retreat, and I know I just said horror authors, but it's really just like one horror author there, and it's the one who's like telling this story of him coming to the retreat to write his new book and meeting this woman and learning her story. And then while he's there, he's meeting other writers, but he also is becoming obsessed with trying to solve the case about this woman's daughter, because this woman does not believe that her daughter is dead. She thinks she's out there somewhere and that she can find her. And then while he's there, he hears like music playing at night. He hears someone singing. It's really, really spooky. And then you start, as the reader, getting that feeling like, what, is this place haunted? And you just don't know. Maybe it's just something that caters really specifically to my taste, but I had so much fun reading it, and I do want to recommend it to you today. Lastly, for the Halloween vibes category, we have Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. This is the same author as Horror Store, also as My Best Friend's Exorcism and Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and you know, the one with the guitar on the front. We Sold Our Souls, or yeah, I've not read that one, but love me some Grady Hendrix. This is in the Halloween vibes category because it's about a group of women who were real life final girls. This is a fiction book, but in the book, these women were the sole survivals of mass murders, and now they all have a support group together, and they've been friends for decades, like years and years. They've all known each other, been in each other's lives, but then at the very beginning of the book, they can't decide if they want to continue the group, but then the final girls start dying, and there's gonna be like one ultimate final girl, or that's what you think when you're reading. That's kind of the road you think it's gonna take. So each of the girls in this book are actually based on like horror heroines and final girls from horror movies that like you and I would know. So just like getting in that mindset of thinking about all of the horror movies and everything, just too perfect for Halloween. I know I just said that one was the last one for Halloween, but actually there's one that I'm not quite finished with yet, but I am loving this book. It's called The X-Hex by Erin Sterling, and I want to say that Rachel Hawkins is using this as a pen name. So this is actually like a really cute, cozy romance book. It's not a thriller, it's not a horror book. It was my book of the month pick for October, and this entire cover just looks so much like Bewitched to me. It looks so cute. It's so adorable. I actually don't know what this book is about at all. I can just tell you like what it's about from what I've read. So basically so far, these two used to date a little bit. It was very brief, but they got along really well, but then they broke up and she cursed him. And now they've gone, like they've parted ways for like 9 years, but now he is coming back to the town where she lives because there's gonna be this, listen to this, fall festival, or it's like a college thing he has to go to, I don't know, but he's coming back and they're gonna have to see each other, and it is so stinking cute. In love with this book. Oh my gosh, really fast. Let me show you. Cat candle. Oh, and it takes place in Georgia. What more could a gal ask for? Literally nothing. Okay, the final category that we have for the video is called Just Trust Me. I don't really know. I don't have any supporting evidence as to why I think that these would be good to read for Halloween, but let's just go through the list anyway. I just don't want to stop talking about books. That's why we're doing this. So House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski, of course, a classic. This is my favorite book that I've read so far of this year, and possibly ever. There's no super short way to explain what this is about at all, but my really short like elevator pitch for it would be that it is about, there's just no way to do it. There's no way to do it. Give me a second, let me think. Okay, stay with me. I think I've got it. This book is about a family who moves into a new house. And when they move into that house, it is a little bit larger on the inside, dimension-wise, than it is on the outside, okay? And while they're there, the father of the household decides that they're going to make a documentary about their stay at the house. And this is called the Navidson Record. So then they turn into these found footage clips because, well, I don't have to tell you why, but they do, okay? Actually, setting the book down, this is too heavy. So that's the first thing you've really got to wrap your head around, is that that is going to be part of the book. Now, there's this man named Zampano who is writing a huge thing, like almost like an academic journal, kind of like he's doing all this research on the Navidson record, trying to prove that it did in fact exist, because apart from Zampano's research and what he cited in this book, or like manuscript that he's working on, there is no evidence that this ever happened or that those tapes exist. Okay, so that's the second thing you gotta wrap your head around. Then the third thing, which is my favorite part and what ties this entire book together, is that this entire story is being edited by a man named Johnny Truant. And he's also telling his own life story throughout the book, and he keeps popping in with his own footnotes that are both correcting the story and like kind of like maybe changing things. It is made known to the reader right up front that Johnny is actually an unreliable editor, which is fun, of course. And also we're getting the horror, like the real horror of his childhood and his life. We're getting those stories interspersed throughout the supernatural horror of the haunted house from the Navidson record, which are the tapes that may or may not have existed. Okay, if you haven't clicked off by now, just know this book is so weird. It's so unique. Look at this mess. Can you see? Let me see. So these are footnotes. Let me see if we can get into peak chaos. Oh, pictures, you know? Oh, wait. Oh, okay. A lot of the pages are even just like that. Like little bitty words? I don't know. Love House of Leaves. I highly recommend it to anybody who wants to read it. Love it. Next for Just Trust Me is the book that is tied for my favorite book of the year with House of Leaves, and it's They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. An iconic book. Not a perfect book. Not a perfect book. I've had a lot of people who are like, I read that and just didn't think it was good. I'm not saying it's like the most well-written piece of literature ever. It's not going into the thriller literary canon anytime soon, but it is in my heart because it was the most fun I've ever had reading a book, ever. I will say that confidently. This book is much easier to explain. We have two timelines going on and they both take place at a college setting. The first perspective is about a college professor, and she teaches Shakespeare, I think? She teaches literature of some kind. Her thing is murdering men who are predators and who abuse women or who have wronged women in some way, like especially, particularly on this campus. It's just incredible, okay? And then the other part of the book is about a girl who is on the same campus, and she is kind of dealing with a predator in her midst. The reason that I say just trust me and read it in October, read it for Halloween, I read it last October, possibly. I read it around this time last year. Perfect. Immaculate. Amazing. Something about murder happening on an atmospheric college campus. I don't know, it's just so good. I feel like there are a lot of descriptions of like old fireplaces and old books and murder, of course. The murder is what makes the book, but so good. Next, I would like to recommend one. I don't even know if I've ever talked about it. The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. This was really weird, and if you're gonna read it and you're interested to read it this time of year. This book is about a woman who has a family member, I wanna say it's her uncle, who runs this shop of oddities, and she goes to work with him, but then literally on her first or second day, he pieces out. He's like, I gotta go on a business trip. Can you like run this shop for me? So she does, and she and her best friend that she's made stumble into another dimension. Basically, they get themselves into pretty big trouble, and it's a really quirky book. I really love quirky horror. I love horror that does not take itself too seriously. If this book was being super serious and like thinks that it's being the scariest, creepiest, grossest type of storytelling, I would not be into it at all. But it doesn't really read like satire, because there are some disturbing moments, but it's more like campy. I think campy is maybe a good word for it. Also, maybe I don't know what campy means. Next, I absolutely have to recommend Vicious by V.E. Schwab, because I never talk about this book, and I don't know why. I loved Vicious. I have no idea what I rated it on Goodreads, because you know how I do. Sometimes I finish a book and I give it a 3-star rating, and I don't know why I do that, because then I go on to think about it all the time over the course of the next few years. That's the case with Vicious for me. This also has a college setting. I'm seeing a theme here. And actually, I take that back. There are the two timelines. We have the past and the present, and in the past, it's about these two young men who are at college, and they are best friends, Victor and Eli. Forever. Both of them are super, super smart, like too smart for their own good type of smart, and they discover how to make themselves extraordinary, which means that they can they have to bring themselves to the brink of death or actually die and then come back, and then they'll have superpowers. I don't know if I just sold that pitch to you, but they are able to do that. They go through with their plan, but then the power kind of goes to one of their heads. Arguably both of their heads, but there is definitely one who is the villain and one who is like an anti-hero, but that you're pulling for him, you know? I kind of skipped over it, but of course they have a falling out, and now they are mortal enemies. And one of them went to jail, and now the book starts in the present day with him getting out of prison and going for revenge. Something about the magic and the college campus and just all of the angst going on in this book, perfect for Halloween. Next, just trust me, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is a recommendation for you if you really like slow burn books, because let me tell you, not much happens at all for the first 215 pages of this book, but then the last little third is really weird. I was gonna say good, but it's strange. This is one of the strangest books I've ever read, but you know, I like the weird ones. This is about a woman named Nomi whose cousin lives out in this manor out in the Mexican countryside. She's like married into wealth, and she's getting these letters from her cousin like, they're trying to poison me, you've got to come save me. So she goes, she gets out there, and the family's like, nothing is wrong with her, what are you talking about? And then Nomi gets roped into staying, and then can she leave? Besides like the actual plot of this book, the thing that sticks out the most to me is how often fog is described. Fog over tombstones, fog over bricks, fogs walking around, you know, it just really got that eerie tone, and it just that building sensation of, I am so creeped out, what's going on here? It's a very quiet build up, and a lot of people don't like the twist at the end of this book at all, but when an author just goes for it like this, I've got to respect it. Highly recommend Mexican Gothic. Next is one I think I've never talked about on my channel either. I might have, but I might not have. Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I forgot that I read this book until I was looking at my shelves trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about. Perfect for October. Oh my gosh, it's another dark academia, of course. And this one actually is more of a fantasy book, and it's going to be a series. It's like the Alex Stern series. Look at the snakes. I actually really love this cover. This is one of my favorite covers that I own. I'm gonna have to possibly continue with the series if the next cover looks anything like this. This book is about Alex Stern, and she is a freshman at Yale, but she has these mysterious benefactors. Like, she definitely is not paying for anything, she doesn't know why she's there, and then when she gets there, this book has so many cool little details. Like, we've got occult stuff going on, we have secret societies, we have ghosts. There are a lot of ghosts in this book. I didn't love it. I'm gonna be upfront with you. Like, I don't love this book. I think that's why I don't talk about it as much as I could if I liked talking about it. But there is a huge audience for this book, and there are a lot of people who absolutely love it. So I didn't want to like leave it off the list in case you think it's gonna be your thing. Again, what I like the most is just like it taking place at Yale, and you know, I also love the little ghosts walking around too. Lastly, we have one I'm hoping to finish up, hoping one that I'm hoping to finish up later this afternoon. It's called Dead Dead Girls. I'm a little over halfway through. I think I'm on chapter 41. For this recommendation list, I don't know about it. I'm gonna be upfront and honest. You know, no thoughts, just vibes. It takes place in the 1920s. It's super cozy. It's all like smoke and mirrors and lounge areas and dancing and murder. It actually reminds me of a cozy, stay with me, Sharp Objects, kind of the way that this main character here is like going around and interviewing families of these dead black women who are going missing and murdered and trying to get to the bottom of a mystery herself. She's not a journalist, but she is working with the police because they've got a hold on her because she like punched an officer or something, and now she's working with them so that she doesn't go to jail. Her name is Louise, and Louise actually had been kidnapped and got out of a horrible situation like before the book starts, or that's kind of how the book starts. It's a flashback of her escaping from captors, and she has become renowned in Harlem for doing so. And so like, of course, when the police get her, they're like, this girl's been in this situation before, let's recruit her to help us. I wouldn't necessarily call this book thrilling, but it's another one that's just a really good mystery, and it has been really fun to read at this time of year so far. I've not finished it yet, but I am quite enjoying it. All right, that's it for the recommendations. Thank you guys as always so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.